Hey guys, and welcome back to another one of my videos. In the previous video, I showed you how to use make.com to automatically stamp a document in DocuWare. In this video, I'm going to take that one step further, and what we're going to do is we're going to use make.com to what's called Bates number a document. For those that don't know what Bates numbering is, Bates number is the practice of sequentially numbering pages with a reference number. For example, page 1 would be ABC001, page 2, ABC002, page 3, ABC003, and so on. To be able to get this to work in Make, first of all, we need to set DocuWare up to be able to retrieve the total number of pages for the document. To do that, we can add a new field into our filing cabinet by going to our name, configurations, file cabinets, edit the file cabinet we would like this to work in, go to database fields, add a new field and give it a name, so page total for example, and set the field as numeric. Click save, and our filing cabinet is now set up to work with this method. Unfortunately, the total pages in the database isn't available in the DocuWare workflow, so the next step we're going to have to do is set up an auto index job. So if we go back out of filing cabinets, click the 9 dots at the top, go to auto index, new auto index job. Now we can call this get page numbers. Again, you can call this whatever you like. We want to do it on a file cabinet event, and we want to do it for new documents that arrive in the filing cabinet. We have to define a rule. So for new create rule, the easiest one is system fields DocID is not empty. Every single document stored in DocuWare always has a DocID. If you'd only like this to work for certain document types, obviously you can set additional filters. So you could come in here and say, and document type is equal to invoice, for example, and obviously that would then just work on invoices. For the sake of this demo, I'm just going to use the DocID is not empty. Next, we need to set the match data up. So if we click match data, we have to match with an external database, and we're actually going to match with the external database that is for the filing cabinet the document is being stored into. So from here, we click configure data source. Now, unfortunately, although when we look at the database table, we can see the total pages available within that table, unfortunately, DocuWare doesn't let us actually access the total pages within AutoIndex from here. So we have to use something a little bit more complicated, which is a SQL command. So if we click on SQL command, I will include down below the actual SQL statement that is needed, but it is select, and we want the DWDOCID, comma, and the sum of DW total pages as page underscore totals from the filing cabinet we're in, group by DWDOCID. Click Test SQL Statement. You'll get a pop-up telling you the SQL statement is okay. Click OK. I'm normally fairly relaxed in the way I build things, but I always like to save things as I'm going through step by step. So at this stage, I would recommend saving the configuration. Perfect. So the next thing we have to do is set up the match code. So we come to the document filing cabinet. We say the DocID is equal to DWDOCID. Click Assign Data. Click plus. Click into the document fields. Page total is filled with the field page underscore totals. Click Save. Our auto index job is now completely configured. So if I now go back to the DocuWare system, go to my document tray, import a sample document, store this to my document filing cabinet with any old information. If I now go to searches, what you'll see is instantly the page number of the document is brought through. We can check it's correct. If I double click, open the document up, you can see at the top there's 23 pages. You can also see it by going to edit index entries, system entries, and you'll see at the bottom here we have the total pages there. The next stage is to go to Workflow Designer. So if we open up the DocuWare Workflow Designer, create a new workflow, give it a name, so base stamping, choose a filing cabinet. Under the trigger conditions, we want it for if index entries have changed. I would leave it for new documents as well, just in case DocuWare doesn't pick up that the page number is updated as quick as it has. Leave the top conditions blank. In the bottom conditions, we want page total is not empty. Log in. And we're ready to build our workflow. What I'm actually going to do first is just make one additional change to the trigger conditions for this workflow. And it's just to stop DocuWare accidentally triggering this workflow again in the future if we're going to do more work with this document other than just update it once. So what I'm going to do is just go back into the start. Under the trigger conditions, I'm going to add one more trigger condition to the after modification, and it's going to be that the page number has changed. From here, I'm now going to build my web service connection. Under the web service, I'm going to use the make.com web service. This is the same web service that we set up in the first video of my make.com playlist. So if you haven't done this or you don't have this available in your system, if you're in EU, chances are it's going to be the same URL as mine. If not, please do go and check that video out, and please update or set your makeup and DocuWare up in the same way. Next, I'm going to go to the request. The method is a post method. I'm going to go to the H. The JSON needs two pieces of key information. The first is the doc ID of the document. The second is the total number of pages in the document. This is really, really easy to set up. Squiggly bracket, enter. I always like to format my body here. You don't have to format it as neatly as I do. The only reason I do it is just for reading. If there's a larger JSON, it becomes a bit of a pain if everything's not formatted nicely. The first section of the body is the name that is going to display for us to use in Make. So document underscore identifier, colon, and that is going to be mapped to the DWDOCID. Next, I'm going to want the total pages in doc, and that is going to be mapped to the page total field. There is a comma on the end of the first row. Don't add a comma on the second row, otherwise it will not validate the JSON. Next, on the next line, close the squirrely brackets, and that's the JSON built ready to use. From here, we need to set up the root still. Now the root is the independent URL for the webhook that we're going to use within Make. So if we go click on root, we want to click plus, and it will be a fixed entry, but we need to get the value that goes into here. To get the value, if we open up Make, create a new scenario, click the plus, search for webhook, and click on webhooks. We want it to be a custom webhook, and we want to add a new webhook. Give it a name, Bates numbering, for example, and click Save. Make now gives us a complete URL for this independent webhook. If I copy the address to the clipboard, go back to my DocuWare workflow, paste the address in, and I want to remove everything from the last / back to the beginning of the string. If I now go back to my HTTP body, if I fill in a sample page total and fill in a sample document ID, click Send, I'll get a response saying the status is OK and the body of the response will be accepted. What that has done is it has sent the structure of the JSON that we are going to use to make. You'll see here I get a message telling me that it's been successfully determined. Click OK, and I'm now ready to build my make process. There is actually one more step in DocuWare that I've forgotten to set up, and that is the DocuWare stamp. So if we just quickly go back to our DocuWare system, click our name, configurations, stamps, new stamp, I'm going to text stamp, give it a name. We don't want to bring in the username, time, or date. I am going to keep a border just for the sake of this demonstration, but you might not want the border either. I want a single user input, and that's going to be base number. Click OK. I've got the ability to change the color if I need to, change the font, bold the font, italics, underline, and so on. Under indexing, we're doing nothing with it. Under behavior, we're doing nothing with it. Under permissions, just make sure that whichever user you are using within make also has permissions to this stamp. And click Save. Excellent. Now, if we go back to make, we want to click plus, and we're going to use a flow control module, and we want to use the repeater module. Initial value is going to start at 1. The repeats, we want to use the total pages in docs from the webhook that we set up earlier. You can look at the show advanced settings. It is step of 1 page. If there's a reason that you want to change that, obviously you can go into there and change that as well. Click OK. Move everything over. Add a module. DocuWare. Scroll to the bottom. I want to place a stamp. Add the connection. Again, in the first video in my Make series, I showed you how to do that. Under Select or Map, I'm going to choose Select. Under File Cabinet / Document Tray, pick the document tray or cabinet that we're using. Document ID, I'm going to map that to the document identifier from the webhook. File position, if this is a clipped document, you might only want to stamp the backup documentation, in which case it would be file position 2. There's only one file here, so I'm going to be using file position 1. Now under page number, I want to use the flow control, the I from the repeater. Scroll down. The stamp I'm going to be using is the Bates numbering stamp we just set up. Now within here, it asks me what the value is that I want to include. So I could say demo space I. Under the stamp position, I'm going to manually choose the location. This is a new feature that DocuWare introduced just last week. And now I get asked for the horizontal X and Y positions that I would like to add the stamp to on the document. To work out where these positions are, you can open your document in Adobe if it's a PDF. Under View, you'll have Show and Hide, Rulers and Grids, Turn on Rulers. If you go to Edit, Preferences, Units at the bottom, make sure your units are showing as millimeters. And click OK. The resolution isn't great, but if I look at the first page, I want my stamp to come into somewhere in here. So I want it to be about 10 millimeters across, and this is showing 200. So where does 100 start? 200, 210, 220, 230, 280. So I'm going to say 280 on the vertical and about 10 on the horizontal. Go back to make. 10, 280. Click OK. Save my make scenario. And under scheduling, I need to turn the scenario on. Excellent. If I now go back to DocuWare, import another test document, store my document away, go to my searches, look at the history of the document. I can see that the workflow was triggered straight away. If I now double click to open the document, scroll to the bottom, I can see demo 1, go to page 2, demo 2, page 3, demo 3, and so on. That is how, using DocuWare and Make.com, you can effectively Bates number a document within DocuWare. Thanks for watching. Any questions or comments, please leave them below. If you wouldn't mind giving a like as well, that'd be really appreciated. There'll be plenty more videos to come. Thank you.